We will be sharing the links. Okay, let's start the first session. So as you all know, plastic has been a wonder material, but we have faced some difficulties recently which have uh, propped up because of one important negligence by the humankind, and that's we have not properly thought about the sense of utilizing or using the plastics with a sense of uh, respect, with a sense of neutrality towards the material. So that's why what happens is that the media and all other platforms are ablaze with the facts that this has to be banned. You have heard a lot of uh, news programs, a lot of noise about banning plastics, single-use plastics. So let's come together and understand what exactly it means. And my name is Dr. Irfan, and I'll be taking this session for you. So if today I ask this audience and a simple question that do you agree with the fact that plastic should be banned, or do you agree with these quotes which are on your screen right now, like we see plastics hatao, dunia bachao, or say no to plastics and save earth? So if I urge you all to raise your hands, I'll see that most of the audience will raise the hands and they'll be supporting this theory that yes, we are environmentally conscious. We are people who have to be really related to the environment. So therefore, we have to do this sort of activity that we should ban plastics. Okay, let me firstly clarify that I am not a lobbyist. We are not a lobby here propagating the values of plastics. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not a person who's um, favoring this idea that environment should be compromised. But what I know is that I'm addressing a gathering which is of people who have a technical bent of mind. And we are people, whatever we do, we publish. We are people who work and publish and get an accreditation for that or get a value for that by publishing. We believe in facts which have been published. We believe in impact factor of the work that has been published. So why should we just ignore the facts and just believe what has been fed to us through various social media platforms, various media platforms, who are actually not knowing the technicalities? My whole presentation will have values, will have technical inputs which are basically from the input that has been taken from some reliable sources, reliable technical sources, and I'll be giving the sources too. So being technically aligned, let's not look into the just you can say the propaganda or the thoughtless facts, because if this continues, this nonsense will be um, the clear factor for deciding the policies, and that should not happen. So let's move ahead, and whatever I'll be propagating here will be on the basis of some hard facts, technical facts. Okay, as you know, the plastics have been coming up through different situations, and we are currently having what we have now is an age which is essentially a plastic age. we have been characterizing age on the basis of the most predominant material that has been used in that age, like we had Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age. Then gradually we move towards a more sustainable materials. We move towards some easy to use materials, including plastics, and gradually you can see right now is that we have plastics. Practically, it's omnipresent. It's everywhere. And if you imagine your life from morning, the moment you get up from your sleep, if you imagine your life uh, till the time you are back to the bed, you cannot eliminate the word plastic from your life. You take anything, the water tank that stores the water, the pipelines which feed the water, or the drainage pipes that we use, the buckets, the mugs, the faucets, the pipes, they are all made of plastic. And move ahead, modes of transport, office furnitures, computers, the mobile phones, or the devices that are used in healthcare, all have plastics. So we cannot skip the basic fundamental that this is a plastic age. You have to, whether you accept it or not, whether you like it or not, you are in a plastic age. What led, the question is, what led us to this age? How we came to this age, and what was the advantage of plastics as they emerged as a material, as the fundamental material of an age. The first thing was that when compared to the conventional materials like metals, it had certain superiorities. It was inert. You won't get rusting on it. You can store chemicals. You can store water without bothering for rust, without bothering for any contamination. Plastics are used to protect deforestation and conserve natural resources. Plastic composites have been everywhere. We have seen flooding of composites everywhere. They can be composites of with inorganic fillers, organic fillers, or fillers which are easy to find like sawdust, and nanocomposites which are the norm of the day. Since metals were replaced with plastics, it led to a system wherein the weight of the products immediately reduced. Since weight of the products was reduced, it led to use of lower energy, and we saved some fuel. Plastics are essentially recyclable, which makes them an advantageous material. They have good strength, they have good value, and that's why they they add a certain value to the system, and that is unique to them. We saw plastics emerge as a material of choice since age. Uh, in 1960s, after 50s, these commodity plastics started to have applications in our direct lives. In 1970s, plastics started as simple household items, like we had plastic mugs, plastic buckets, or baskets made up of plastics. So they had very low value and low performance, and people used to adapt them. But as soon as the packaging sector developed in 1980s, there was a boom of application of plastics. And during 1990s, when there was this IT boom and technical products became norm of the day, we had intricate designs now. They had higher value, higher performance. engineering plastics became the norm of the day. And by 2000s, this age, we had people asking for more sophisticated applications. We had critical engineering applications. We had automobile parts, critical automobile parts. We had high performance materials like materials which can be used at sub-zero temperatures, or which can be used, for example, flame retardant shoes, flame retardant uniforms for firefighters. This all came out in 2000s. If you talk about application of plastics in our country, in Indian market, we can say that in percentage, majority of packaging market, that is the predominant application of plastics in India. And we have, it's followed by agricultural use, like for greenhouses, for mulch film, for distribution of water in the fields, sprinklers, laterals, so or tarpaulins to cover the food grain. This all has flooded the market. You can see it implemented everywhere in every village. Then the third one is electrical and electronic applications. Like we have switch gears, we have MCBs, we have wires coated with plastics, and all the electronic equipments. Then we have food holding items in our houses or furniture. It's followed by construction applications. It's followed by telecommunication equipments, healthcare, toys, and sports, and whatnot. You can yourself imagine the implications of having plastic in our world. But what has flooded our minds since recently is that plastics have been deemed as a curse. Why they became curses is an important discussion, and it's a long one. I'll take you through certain aspects of the change of the same discussion, but let's understand that plastics are an imminent part of our life. They are inseparable part of our lives. If you use plastics, you have to use them judiciously. And what happened is that with the advent of plastic applications, people became used to throwing these in the open environment, and that generated a lot of waste. In practical terms, nothing is waste. How you characterize waste is that when a certain product is at the end stage of its application cycle, when it's at the last most step of application cycles, you call it waste. India generates around 95 lakh tons of plastic waste per annum. And the irony is that 38 lakh tons is uncollected. Mainly it is single-use plastics. And this plastic ends up in dumps, rivers, and even some animals eat it. So we are majorly concerned with this 38 lakh tons. This is as per Central Pollution Control Board data. And as per realistic statistics, India is going to double up the consumption of plastics in next year or 2 years. The only concern is that when it doubles up the consumption, what will happen to the waste that is being generated? You have seen a lot of hue and cry regarding ocean plastics, that there are huge gyres of plastics floating in the ocean. And I have been taking these sessions lately, and in the last FTP that was conducted, I had done an exclusive discussion on myths and realities. But here I'll be more focusing on ocean plastics and the technicalities associated with this. That is very important now because nowadays people uh, are flooded with messages that our oceans are flooded, our oceans will be there will be more fish in ocean that, oh sorry, more plastic in ocean than fish, and all these significant news that's coming through different sources to our minds. So I'll be talking a lot about ocean plastics in this presentation. But let me firstly give you some perspectives of the problem. Single-use plastics, we'll be talking about them. Recently, some guidelines have also been formulated to identify what are single-use plastics. Believe me, when you say single-use plastics, there is a universe which is single-use plastics. These products have been identified because their impact in generating that 38 lakh tons of waste in India has been significant. That's why these have been identified as replaceable. So the number one is thin carry bags. When we mean thin, it means below certain microns, which keeps on updating 70 microns till this time, and thereafter 100 microns. We'll be talking about, we have a session on guidelines, plastic waste management guidelines, which will be taken by Dr. S.N. Yadav sir. So he'll be elaborating a bit on this. I won't elaborate so much, but single-use plastics doesn't essentially mean any product that is being significantly single-used. If that would have been definition, the easiest example would have been disposable syringe. So they are also used only once and then they are discarded. But can we live without those disposable syringes? That's a whole vaccination drive that's being run to save the humanity from COVID-19 is implemented using the same single-use disposable syringe. So in a broad reality, we are using single-use plastics almost every day. We're using single-use plastics frequently. So there are certain plastics which have been choking over drains or which are easily found in the garbage bins. So to regulate them, to regulate their use, certain guidelines have been established, and you'll be getting a thorough input in that in the last session of this FTP. And let's come to some myths. I have really confined myself to one or two myths only. There are a lot of myths about that. If you have any questions, you can ask it in the chat. I'll take it later in the session. The first prominent myth that is being propagated in everywhere is that some people believe that the largest component of municipal solid waste is plastic. If you go by the data, the largest component is of paper and paperboard, cardboard, or cardboard-based packaging, the wrappings, or all this forms the largest component in solid municipal waste. Then, in predominantly in West and Europe, they have yard waste which comes next to it, and not surprisingly, a lot of metals are found in the municipal solid waste. Again, we don't have a very disciplined way of separating separating this waste at source. So a lot of food waste enters into the garbage bins. There is glass also, and then there is this plastics, which is ideally 7% internationally, and in India it's only 4% by weight, and it's claimed, and there are certain statistics which say almost 60% of that waste is recycled. But yet again, there are certain elements or certain products which are not appreciably brought forward to recycling. That's why they create this havoc. And there has been a lot of discussion, and why I included this is because I'm addressing a learned audience, an audience which is technically sound. So a lot of people think, why shouldn't we simply transfer our focus on biodegradables? Why don't we have everything in biodegradable? The fact is that all materials need not to be biodegradable. Conventional materials have never been biodegradable. Metals have never been biodegradable. Stone has never been biodegradable. Glass has never been biodegradable. So why do you need plastics to be biodegradable? That is the thought. And in order for any material to be biodegradable, it has to be sourced from a biosource. So these sources are not in abundance. The technology surrounding this extraction of the material from biosources is not so advanced right now. So I don't say that they will not be the norm of the day some 10, 20 years later. But I say today they are not feasible, simply feasible. Plus they have their own limitations. We cannot imagine a refrigerator or of a car exteriors made up of biodegradable plastic. If they degrade, what will happen? So application based need has to be there. We have certain elements that have to stay there for years. We cannot use biodegradable simply everywhere. Yes, we are focusing a lot of technology, knowledge on developing biodegradable carry bags. They may serve a purpose. The only challenge is that the ease of manufacture and the cost effectiveness of plastics is unchallengeable. We need to go for a broader price window if we talk about biodegradable carry bags. I just included this research paper of 2019. This is a research paper, please mind it. We are people, if we go for MTech, we have to produce research papers of SCA journal and all that. So we believe in data which has been authenticated by publication in some authentic journals. This group of Napier and Thompson, what this simply did was that they took three different type of carry bags. One was biodegradable, sorry, four different types of biodegradable, oxo-biodegradable, compostable, and conventional plastic carrier bags. You would not have heard of many of them, but biodegradable are simply which can be degraded in biological environment. Oxo-biodegradable are which are made degradable by adding certain additives to them, which render them biodegradable under oxygen concentration. There are compostable, the plastics which can degrade if thrown in a compost pit, and conventional plastic bags. What they observed was that after 9 months of exposure in open air, all the bag material had disintegrated into tiny fragments. It's very important to note. All the carry bag samples had degraded to tiny fragments, which means that the fun of having also biodegradable or biodegradable, they will never ever solve the problem of marine litter. They were mainly concentrated on studying for marine littering problems. And for any material to be degradable, You have to give it the certain environment in which it becomes biodegradable, it becomes degradable, it becomes also biodegradable. And that environment is not found in the garbage bin. That's not available in the dump yards. It's not possible that you just throw the material in the dump yards and then it will degrade. You have these theories coming up that it will take 10,000, 20,000 years for a plastic bag to degrade in dump yards. Uh, I'm addressing a learned audience. I hope most of you must be knowing, but I'm just reminding you once again that these dumping yards were created so that the material inside should not degrade and produce carbon dioxide out of it. So this dumping yard in itself is not meant to degrade the things. You will not be surprised, but during excavation, during working out on those dump yards which have been there for 30 years, 40 years, people were surprised to see that newspapers which have been dumped there 20 years back were intact. Even one of the one of the datas, it showed that a carrot which must have been there since last 10 years was intact. It was not degraded. There's no oxygen there. So degradation process needs particular environment. You cannot get that in a dumping yard. So the concept of producing biodegradable things and just dumping them in the dump yard and imagining that they'll be degrading in 5 months, 6 months, 10 months, 12 months doesn't hold good, at least as far as Napier and Thompson is concerned. So the perspective has to be broader. This is a paradox. So there are certain celebrities, certain NGOs propagating, we must use paper bags, we must use cloth bags, we must use other alternative bags for grocery items. I'm essentially talking about grocery bags. If you do it, volume, I'll tell you why. Volume of plastic waste will increase more than 250 times. Weight of packaging would increase 400%. I go to a shopping mall, they thrust a paper bag in my hand for which I have to pay 10 rupees. And when I come back, I just weighed that bag. It was more than 60 grams. As against the same bag would have weight of plastic would have weighed 5 grams. So appreciable weight is increased. When we talk about weight, I'll come to that data in the next slide. It consumes a lot of energy. Paper making consumes a lot of water, a lot of energy. And then durability and reliability. We can get a clothing item in a paper bag, but we cannot get a green grocery in a paper bag. You have to carry a grocery bag. And that's a good habit, in fact. So I just chose one important survey. It was a review. It was done by Thompson Rivers University. It's available online. You can check it. They simply took 3 different packaging containers, beverage containers. Coca-Cola, Pepsi. One was aluminum can, another was glass bottle, and the third one was PET bottle, PET bottle, which is used to store most of the cold drinks nowadays. When they thoroughly studied, what they found was that in terms of consumption of energy to produce a single 200 ml bottle, aluminum can utilized 16 British thermal units, glass bottle 26, and PET was way below at 11 units. When we talk about solid waste, weight per pound of such bottles. You can see it yourself. In terms of volume also it was very less. But what is more important is that greenhouse gas emission, currently we are in a phenomenon wherein global warming has taken some has taken the whole world by, has swayed up everywhere. So in those conditions we have to understand that we cannot let greenhouse gases to build up. So if we are utilizing aluminum can, where CO2 equivalent, carbon credit equivalent is around 2800, it's much more, almost more than twice with glass bottles. And for PET bottles, it's almost 1200 equivalents. So you can decide for yourself, considering greenhouse gases, which particular item you are going to have. It's not only the waste management. There is another factor, very important factor associated is hygiene. When we reuse these glass bottles, there's a factor of hygiene involved. So all these things put together, I'll just run you through an imaginary stage. You see, we have, our environment is filled with these ugly looking plastic carry bags. And this is the matter of concern for all of us, primarily for us as plastic technologists, because this is the product which has brought all the blame on plastics, on this wonderful material, on the plastic technologists. We are answerable to practically everybody because of this particular product which doesn't look good to anyone, plastic carry bag. You know, why I selected this comparison was for a purpose. And I'll come to that purpose later on, but let me tell you, this is 2 kg carrying capacity carry bag. It hardly weighs 5 grams. And for your comparison, a simple credit card also weighs around 5 grams. So we have equivalent plastics there. And let me ask you, how many credit cards you find in garbage bins? The only issue is credit card has a value and this carry bag doesn't have a value. Therefore, they are thrown. It's not the plastic which has to be blamed. It is the value creation. It is the ultimate identity of the product that has to be taken into account. I'll come to this comparison later on when I talk about littering. But you imagine that the same amount of plastic has been used. Now, you have the source also. It is from Danish Environmental Protection Agency had done assessment. What we don't do is life cycle assessments. Nobody will come up with some life cycle assessments, and they did wonderful work in this, and they projected this work, and they said, let's do life cycle assessment in terms of reuses, in terms of impact on environment. So what they did was that single-use LDPE, low-density polyethylene plastic carry bag, they used it as a standard. And then they thought, let's have the impact of this. So they felt that if organic cotton bag and poly LDPE carry bag has to be come at the same level of environmental impact, the organic cotton bag has to be reused 20,000 times, or conventional cotton bags at least 7,000 times, or composite has to be used at least 870 times, or recycled PET has to be used 84 times. Recycled PET bags are now conveniently available as grocery bags. When the same agency talked about greenhouse emissions, the amount of greenhouse emission that is there for production of a single-use plastic LDPE bag, when we compare with conventional materials, we'll find that if the simple cotton bag has to be used more than 50 times, then it can adjust to the or be equivalent to the greenhouse effect it has given when we compare it with an LDPE plastic bag. These are hardcore data. They have to be analyzed. But what chokes our mind is this: littering. Littering is when you toss away any material at a place where it doesn't belong to. You are eating, you are reading newspapers, you thrash the newspapers on the road, it means littering. You are eating a Lay's packet and you tear the packet, eat the contents, throw the Lay's packaging somewhere. What does that signify? This is littering. And I want you to understand and remember that plastics do not litter. It's only the people, it's only we who are doing it. So the first responsibility of anybody is that we should be able to stop people from littering. And this is the problem. This littering is the problem, is the main issue. If you see the data as per Meager et al. 2021, we are, along with China, the worst in managing plastic waste. We have the most mismanaged plastic waste in the world, and probably we are second or third in littering. I'll come to that also. But let me firstly tell you what littering means. When you question any plastic technologies, the first thing is that cows eat plastic. This many cows die from eating plastics every year. We accept it. We cannot just deny it because it's happening. You see, there were floods in Chennai, there were floods in Kerala, and then people saw that all the drains were choked with plastic. Yes, it was. When the floods receded, the whole city was full with plastic carry bags. Yes, it was there. It is there. We see rivers having a lot of plastic waste there, or seasides having a lot of plastic waste. We cannot say, no, it's not there. It is there. But the only issue is that, can we take a moment and understand how this plastic ended up in the stomach of a cow? Because in our country, in our culture, cow is revered, is worshipped, and we have this habit of giving food to cow. We have this habit of giving roti to cows. This is a wonderful habit. This is a wonderful way of showing our reverence to Mother Cow. Unfortunately, cows never eat plastics. We make them to eat the plastics. When we throw the roti, when we throw the food in the plastic carry bags, so the cows, in the disguise of having that food, they end up eating the packaging material also. They cannot distinguish, they cannot separate it. So If we would have separated it, if we would have kept the food apart and packaging material apart, this would never have happened. Same is the case with plastic carry bags. We end up throwing carry bags anywhere, everywhere, and literally everywhere. These carry bags are very light in weight. They are carried away with winds. When they are carried away with winds, they spread to different parts. Some enter aquatic ecosystem, some go to rivers, some go to drains, some choke the drains. Same with other plastics also. The only thing is that if it had a value, if this waste has a value, it will disappear from the waste. That's what happens with these PET bottles, packaged drinking water bottles, packaging, carbonated drinks, Coke, Pepsi. These bottles you won't find predominantly in waste because they have a value. This polyethylene terephthalate is sold, and we have different products made up of them. You must have heard recently that Levi's is producing jeans out of these polyethylene terephthalate bottles, use polyethylene terephthalate bottles, or you have jerseys of many countries, sports jerseys of many countries, which have been made from recycled polyethylene terephthalate bottles. So, since this bottle has a value, this diminishes or this disappears from the garbage. That's why the micron or the thickness of the plastic carry bags is being increased. Firstly, they'll have a value. Secondly, they'll be more costly. And if you go to a greengrocer, so the normal tendency of an Indian mindset is that we'll ask him for 3, 4 varieties of vegetables, and uh, they'll pack it separately in 4 carry bags. If you step up and carry 1 grocery bag from your home, you are eliminating 6, 7, 10 carry bags from getting into the waste. If everybody does that, the problem will be solved. But since we don't want to be responsible, we pass on the blame. We write big hoardings, ban plastics, save environment, ban plastics, save earth. Even without, in fact, we don't realize that the hoardings itself are made up of plastics. The hoarding on which ban plastics is printed, it's in itself is plastic. We cannot ban plastics, but we can definitely train ourselves. We can definitely get into good thinking. So that is required. So same is the case with littering of food waste. Same is the case with forming habits. So primarily, we are a country which has to tame the way we throw waste. Most of the problems will be solved. As I had told you earlier, that I'll be talking a lot about ocean plastics. You have probably heard, you have probably read, you have watched videos about uh, the scenes that oceans will be all a breeding ground of plastics. There will be more plastics in oceans than fish. So let's understand first. There are primarily 2 types of plastics in the ocean. First one is the macroplastics. Macroplastics, the big products the water bottles we throw, disposable glasses, carry bags, they are macroplastics. Another important issue that has cropped up since a few years is microplastics. Microplastics are plastics which are of micron size and which have found their place in water bodies. The origin of these microplastics are, are a lot of products I'll show you. But the concern is that these microplastics are actually directly eaten by the fish, by aquatic life, and they die out of it. That's a very big concern. So we have to look to two perspectives. One is macroplastics, another is microplastics. Let's delve into it and see. I had this fortune of visiting two beach areas of our country. One was Goa, which is the prominent beach destination in India, and another was Andaman. I brought these two photographs. I don't think anybody has to be blamed. On the left, you can see the remnants of the posh nightlife of Goa, and on the right side, you see Andaman beach, clean, serene, and they are a beautiful sight. And all the beauty of Goa beach has now been tarnished by this plastic, by this waste which is pending there. Let me ask all of you a question. It's the same nature, it's in the same country, probably on different oceans or on different seas, but it's the same country, same nature. Who is responsible for damaging this? Because Goa, as a tourist destination, has been overexploited. Therefore, you find a lot of waste there. While is Andaman still is not that much exploited, there are not millions of tourists going there. Maybe because it's a difficult terrain, you have long distance there. But you'll find fresh beaches. Nature does not eliminate or distinguish between these things. This is only that our habits, our mismanagement of our products has led to formation of a new chaos, of a new issue, and that is that oceans are depleted due to plastics. So when we talk about ocean plastics, we talk about microplastics, micrometer sized particles which are found in the oceans. This was a survey conducted in 2017. I couldn't find a better survey. So I'm using this data that my primary source of microplastics in oceans, in aquatic water, aquatic ecosystem is washing of synthetic textiles. Synthetic textiles, when they're washed, they lose small particles eroded out of their surface. These end up as microplastics in water bodies. Another most predominant factor is erosion of car tires. You see your car tires eroding after a few years. You have to change them. Did you ever wonder how did they erode? Did you ever wonder? They eroded because of friction. Friction created small particles on the road surface. These particles were carried by wind, water to water sources, and they ended up there as microplastics. Third is city dust. City dust carries a lot of remnants of plastics and Similarly, we have a lot of plastic paints being applied for road markings. When they diminish, they wither out, these particles go into marine systems. Personal care products, this is one concern. Before that, marine coatings. You see, all the ships have been coated against so that they don't get corroded, or there are colors, paints, they are applied. You get these coatings deteriorate over time, and this coating goes into the aquatic system, and they form an appreciable part of this marine microplastics. Another one is that is personal care products. I have been talking about these in almost every talk I have given, and we are reluctant to accept that we are the creators of this pollution. A lot of people, almost everyone, uses face wash. We use scrubs. These face washes contain small plastic granules so that they can have a scrubbing ability. These plastic granules directly enter the water system because you're washing your face, they disappear in the water, ended up in drains, and thereby they come to water systems, aquatic system. Similarly, we have scrubs. You'll find a lot of scrubs available on the counter which has plastic granules as scrubbing material. Although there is much better would be you'll have apricot scrubs because there is apricot kernel dust is used as a scrubbing material. This is the change we want. And who is contributing to this microplastics? India and South Asia. Almost we are the biggest leaders in this. We are contributing huge. And let me highlight here something else also. This was a survey carried out by US. This was called National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Marine Debris Program. And they estimated what are the plastic items which are found in the oceans. And then they studied how long they'll take to degrade in marine environment. Most predominant thing that was found in the oceans was fishing lines, fishing nets. Another biggest contributor was disposable diapers. They estimated that if they remain there, they'll take 450 years to degrade. Similarly, plastic bottles, plastic bottle holders, beverage bottle holders, even aluminum cans, tin cans, or foam products, plastic bags, all was found there, but they found that plastic bags took way lower to degrade in environment, in oceanic environment, than disposable diapers. So now, if we talk about contributors, the biggest contributors of plastics to the oceans, what world perceives as that 90% of the plastic that ends up in ocean is contributed by 10 rivers, and all the 10 rivers are in Asia or Africa. So you have to bear that blame with you. You cannot just read stories over it. You cannot just share WhatsApp videos over it that oceans are shrinking because plastic is too much in abundance there. That's why I shared that slide on carry bag and a card. You never throw your credit card anywhere. That's why it never ends up in garbage. But you will throw the carry bag everywhere. That's why it ends up in garbage bins. If when we talk about littering, uh, the biggest plastic littering country is USA, and probably we're following that. We are second or third. And when it comes to contribution from rivers into ocean, Asia is the largest by any scale. And if you have to be very precise, let's share the shame, let's share the guilt. This is it. Biggest contributor, 333,000 tons of plastic in the oceans goes from one Yangtze river in China. It is probably the longest river in Asia and third longest in the world. It passes through 20 biggest cities of China and ends up in East China Sea, somewhere near Shanghai. And it is carrying 333,000 tons annually. Plastic is going through this. So we can blame China. But as far as our country is concerned, we have to be equally blamed. Why? Because for us, the river Ganga or the Ganges, as they call it in America, River Ganga is the most sacred and revered river we have. We have great predominance as per our spiritual or religious thoughts, and it's a national pride. This river Ganga carries with itself 1,15,000 tons of plastics every year, and it goes straight into Indian Ocean. Of course, some contribution from Bangladesh also, because it ultimately flows through Bangladesh into the Indian Ocean. So who is to be blamed? God forbidding, I won't blame Maganga for this. It's we intentionally are you'll see in cities along the coast of Ganga, you'll see wastewater from drains being dumped into Ganga. All the population around Ganga, they dump their waste into Ganga. Recently, we have heard bodies being dumped into Ganga. So already it has shrunk a lot. Now with this plastic and rapid dumping that goes in there, it will shrink further. So we are to be blamed. If you see all other rivers, China is the biggest contributor. And let's compare the average age. See why these packaging materials are the problem, because service usage, that's called mean product lifetime, that's the amount of service life a product has. It is the minimum for these products, that's why these packaging products are found mostly in abundance in waste. It's not that they are produced in abundance, they end up there because, see, if we buy a television, I bought a television, it will be with me for next 20 years. So the service life of the plastic material that has been used there becomes 20 years. But if I buy a Lay's packet, so it will be gone in half an hour. So the service life or product life time of it is very limited, and on an average, it ends up in half a year. In 6 months, it's gone. So that's why it ends up there. But the main question here is that the ease of usage that has been brought in with these applications is immense. We want our goods to be packed in some beautiful packaging and at the same time blame plastics for that. That's not possible. So I'll conclude here that it is easy to say that in order to produce plastic products, we require very less energy. 60 grams of paper has to be processed to produce a paper bag, and 5 grams of plastic has to be processed to produce a plastic bag. Plus, if we compare it with metals, there is very low energy required. I told you, if we are tomorrow, from tomorrow, we say we won't deliver milk in pouches, plastic pouches, let's go to glass bottles. We'll have to spend 10 times more energy to produce those glass bottles. The ease of using them is difficult. Before polyethylene terephthalate bottles were used for medicine, for storage of medicine. I had probably read it somewhere that the losses of medicine, of liquid medicine, was more than 7 to 9%. 7 to 9% of the medicine that was produced was lost because the bottles, the glass bottles they were stored in, were broken during the transportation. And inadvertently, that loss has been minimized. If we say, let's say we are using paper as a replacement. So paper comes from pulp, and pulp has to come from trees. So we have to cut more trees. A rough estimate says that we'll have to cut 7 lakh more trees. So when you say stop plastics, save environment, please consider these things. When we talk about packaging material, for example, we talk about cashew nuts stored in a plastic carry bag, and cashew nuts stored in say tin cans. Most of us, when we purchase cashew nuts on en route of flight, we are served cashew nuts in a tin can, tin container. It weighs somewhere around 50 grams, 60 grams, and there's a lot of work which has been done to produce it. And eventually, there are people like me who collect those tin cans and use them for a purpose. But how many people do them? Most of us throw those tin cans. And it's a loss of energy. And there is a lot of the weight involved in storing that. For example, that 50 grams of cashew nuts was 2-3 grams, and the same was replaced with 60 grams. So appreciably, a lot of packaging material will be used. And with the advent of plastic furniture, for example, it's estimated that 1,40,000 cubic meter of wood has been saved. Plus, it has advantage that it is light in weight, maintenance free. And if you stop using plastic, what will you do with these life-saving equipments? Blood bags, IV tubings, disposable syringes, body implants, and much many more. All of us know that we are living in some unprecedented times. Since last 2 years, we have been facing the grappling issue of COVID-19 outbreak. It started from Wuhan and spread to every nook and corner of the world. We all have been battling with it. We all have used some sort of protection against, we are using some sort of protection against it. So What was the concept behind using plastics? Because being a technologist, being a plastic technologist, I can easily say that um, humanity was saved by plastics. Humanity was saved by wearing face shields, by wearing PPE kits, by wearing masks, by wearing hand gloves, and all these were polymers, plastics. Humanity was saved, but we have to bear that claim also, that these disposable face masks, these disposable gloves, these disposable gowns, PPE kits, they ended up in ocean. You can see it, how masks have been found on beach. This is from earth.org. I got this that hospitals in Wuhan, the center of COVID-19 outbreak, produced 240 tons of single-use plastic-based medical waste per day during the pandemic. But was there a way out? There wasn't. Similarly, during Singapore's 8-week lockdown, the island city's 5.7 million residents discarded an additional 1,470 tons of plastic waste from takeout packaging and food delivery alone. Only because they had to take away the food, they cannot eat it in restaurants. An additional 1,500 tons of plastic waste was given to the environment every day, and we are doing it. We are using Swiggy, we are using Zomato, we are using Uber Eats to get our food delivered to our homes. That's increasing the waste. That's increasing the plastic waste. Once this COVID-19 is gone, before COVID-19, everybody was against single-use plastics. Once this COVID-19 is gone, everybody will have focus on these single-use plastics. But do you think in the near future you'll get away from masks, you'll get away from sanitizer bottles, you will get away from single-use plastic utensils? Because even in posh restaurants, they serve food nowadays in disposable containers. And then we have probably the same thing, the vaccination drives, digitalized plastics. So we are into a web of it. We cannot dispose of plastics. This is the scene which was shared in Hindu. You see, these PPE kits, not only are they depleting for the environment because they have been thrown into the garbage, you understand one thing, and we don't care to think that these PPE kits will be the carriers of COVID-19 vector virus. So the conscience is at stake. We have to be conscious. See, WHO estimates that every month the world needs additional 89 million plastic masks, 76 million plastic examination masks, gloves, and 1.6 million plastic protective goggles or face shields. So 125 scientists recently, they signed a statement when the single-use plastic thing was growing. They said these shopping bags can be reused, and they are not a threat to hygiene, they are not a threat to environment. But the only thing is that approach. We have separate sessions of Dr. Sameer, Captain Vaidya, and Lavish. Lavish has a phenomenal concept of that's called deposit refunds system, DRS, which is applicable in Western world, but we in India don't have that system, and he'll be explaining the gimmicks of that. It's simply that if you purchase a packaged drinking water bottle in West, you have it and you go to the shopkeeper and you give him the empty bottle, he'll accept it and give you 5 cents discount in the next product, or you return a few cents. That's called deposit refund system. We had it in our country. It was implemented for newspapers by many big newspaper agencies, but hasn't been a great success. But I feel it will work with plastics, and we are hopeful that in near future we'll have many such things. And also, our country in 2019 rightly banned the import of plastic waste from the world. And it's appreciable to note that before that, we used to have that. We used to import waste that has been left out by developed nations. And China stopped the same in 2018. So, as a consequence of the Chinese ban, what happened is that cumulative waste plastics, they grew on. And it's a projection that if China continues to do that till 2030, they have a target that by 2030 they completely stop importing. And if it does so, we'll have 100 million tons of waste which will be unmanaged. Every developing country has to think about it, has to raise this concern. But the simple lining is that the way we have been using plastics, or the way the waste management has been going on since 1918 to say 2020 or 2017, this is the data of 2017. If we extrapolate the same data, we'll see that future scenarios of continuously using the plastic will have over the time, the impact will be lower than it has been so far, because we'll have new techniques, new technologies, which will involve the use of good waste management practices, collection, segregation, and we'll have more people coming forward in an organized way to dispose of that waste. So as a citizen, as a responsible person who are using plastics, what we intend to do is, there's a beautiful strategy that's called R's strategy. One is reduce. If you are going to for shopping, kindly carry bag. There are a lot of good carry bags which are available these days. This is an investment. Believe me, you'll at least end up sending more than 150 carry bags directly to waste every month. This is called reduce. Don't reluctantly, I quote this every time, that disposable glass doesn't mean that you drink from it once and throw it off. If you have to drink many times, you can reuse it. Reusing a water bottle many times, like we have 5 gallon or 25-liter polycarbonate mineral water bottle, you reuse it multiple times. So every time we reuse it, we are protecting one more bottle to enter the ecosystem. Recycle. A lot of people in India are doing recycling and producing good value-added products. You can find them everywhere. If time permits, I'll show you one small clip which I had made. What is value adding of plastic, these PET bottles. And if at all, for example, for multi-layer films, for waste that cannot be recycled, it has to be used in many ways. One of the ways it is used is recovery. Recovery of energy. We have Dr. Meda, she'll be talking about plastic waste to fuel. Or we have Sharon, who will be talking about plastic waste to tiles, pavement tiles. And similarly, we have later part of the day, we have Ekta. She'll be talking about something very unique, that or how digitizing this whole waste, plastic waste or waste scenario has brought in dividends, and it has brought in a serious change. So recovery of energy or regenerating waste out of it. And last but not the least is repair of plastic products for damage. If there is a minor damage, you can repair the product and use it for longevity. And by that way, you can reduce the amount of plastic you are giving to the environment. So what will this waste management do? Firstly, it will end up cleaning the environment. Recycling in itself produces a lot of employment opportunities. We'll have economical products, manufacturing of numerous recycled products, which will substitute, for example, synthetic wood, wood polymer composites, or similar ways, and it gives good business opportunities, as you learn when we talk about Sharon's contribution. So now we are virtually have come to the full end of the circle. Now, if I ask you again the same question, that how plastics to be blamed for the scenario that has been creeping up in the world, I think by now most of you will agree to me and say, yes, we raise our hands. We raise our hands in support of plastics. We raise our hands that the change has to be done. We raise our hands that thought has to be developed. We raise our hands that yes, judicious use of plastics as a resource has to be done. So what are our responsibilities? What's our role? Please, you have to do one thing. First and foremost, don't litter. Don't throw away things. Be a trash hero, even if somebody else has litter. Let's clean our surroundings. If you are in your college, if you are in a school, make it a habit that every week you take up 1 hour of your precious time. Take your students along, make it an activity. They'll clean the environment there and bring in those disposable bags into the garbage bin, or keep it. I delivered a talk way back in 2013 in one NIT, and I talked to students like that. They formed a small group. They will collect all that carry bags, these lace wrappers, and they had themselves designed a small compressing machine, and they'll compress this into small bales and sell it to waste collectors. And appreciably, the money which came out of that selling that waste was used to do plantation in the campus. And this was a beautiful cycle they had developed. And by virtue of this medium, I urge all of you to have such activities in your college. And if you need any guidance, further outline in that manner, I'll always be happy to have share my ideas, or I'll be happy to share our expertise in that. Another significant way, we are all learned, we are all educated people. Let's begin it from us only, that carry your bag, bring your own bag. I personally have purchased a number of carry bags, and I carry them virtually. They're good enough. They save a lot of pollution. And whenever you travel, whenever you go to beaches, please leave your footprints and not your rubbish on the beaches. And go to the beaches. There's a lot of people joining from coastal areas here. Go to the beach, volunteer to clean that rubbish, to clean that garbage. Take along these kabadi wallas. They'll add up value. So don't just show off. You have to impress. I have seen some events like this. which are exactly, I can't easily digest them. This is Life Without Plastics is a book authored by two people. I salute their determination in understanding that they must have written it in a computer made up of plastic. Similarly, straws. So there are a lot of straws nowadays which are not plastic. So I talked about single-use plastic, the earbuds, plastic-free July. It's not possible. And we are organizing, be plastic pollution, we are organizing a run. This is not going to help us. The only thing that's going to help us is form habits. If you talk about to a psychologist or anybody who's involved in counseling, they'll say 40% of what we do every day is habit. So form habits which cultivate the sense of judicious use of plastic. So this FDP is a platform wherein we request all of you, this is my sincere request to all of you, form habits, let others form habits. Make people aware that what is the real solution. Real solution is not that you will have 40 by 40 hoarding in the city saying that this is a plastic free city. This is not possible. I'll show you every day for 15 to 20 minutes every day. In the end, I have collected some videos, some case studies. Please be with us. Please study them. Please watch them. They're thought provoking. This whole FDP is nothing related to knowledge. This is nothing of any teaching. This is nothing. This is only thought provoking. That's why I have invited thoughtful people who will provoke different thoughts. So this was the first introduction of the course, and I think what we need to do is that we should have a habit wherein we'll have zero waste hierarchy. Although it's an old model, but it's still is relevant today. Reduce and conserve materials. Buy a bit expensive materials, then you won't throw them easily. Encourage cyclic use of resources. One video I'll show you is that wherein these water bottles are used to create gardens, hanging gardens. Manufacturers have to take this path. They have to design products which are sustainable and take back. That's why I included Hari Krishna said. He is involved with Coca-Cola for devising techniques so that these leftover bottles, leftover wrappers are brought back by the manufacturers. Reuse at our system, reuse, recycle, and regulate. If it has to be disposed of, please regulate that disposal. So this whole FDP is related to plastic waste management. Plastic waste management has to be done through systematic methodology, wherein waste collection, recycling using wood, as Dr. Yadav ably said, we have to utilize proper scientific methods for recycling. Recovery of energy by incineration, wherein we cannot use that waste for normal recycling. Incineration. Utilizing for producing energy. Mr. Imtiaz Ali will be talking about how he made a huge change. He's the change maker. He has been awarded enormously. And he has done something that's incredible, 30,000 track pickers under one umbrella organization called Sarthak Sansthan. And the impact has been huge since years now. Indore, Bhopal has been retaining as the most cleanest cities of India, and he's the change maker. So recovery of chemical recycling and best solutions for environment protection. Don't just cry. Finally, most of this, the material for my presentation came from one author, one source, is Dr. Chris Jamet. He studied more than 400 research papers of merit, and then came out with this book, beautiful book. This is called The Plastic Paradox. It's available online. You can have that. And at the end of the book, this man just simply leaves the readers with a quote. You can be for the environment or against plastics, but not both. You have to understand that being against plastic is not to be with the environment. I wish all of you great success for this FDP. Wish you good health, happiness as you continue your journey through life. And for the happiness, we have brought in Sister Hussain. She is a happiness expert. She'll give you tips on how to bring in happiness in your life, which is most important gift these days. I thank you for the gift of your time and attention. May have many blessings to all of you. From my side, I'll see if there is some chat, if there is any question, or if somebody wants to ask question. Yes, there is an important question, sir. What can be done with microplastics? How to manage? See, microplastics is a problem which is associated more or less with the industries. The producers of microplastics we are all producers of microplastics. Like I told you that the biggest source of microplastics is through washing of synthetic cloths. That doesn't mean that we'll stop wearing synthetic cloths. So that's natural, they are going to wear off. Same is the case with tires. Although a lot of nations are working overtime to produce tires which are more durable, so that these microplastics can be managed. Which plastics are compatible to forms with starch to form blends. As such, I may not be able to comment on this, but yes, there is polylactic acid based plastics, PLA based plastics, which are essentially derived from starch. And the main problem will be processing, because even the easiest to process plastic, that's LDP, it has a melting point more than 110 degrees centigrade, and till that melting point, plastics, this starch will degrade. So we'll have to use plastics which are more or less soluble, and that is a challenge with conventional plastics. So if we do solution blending and then we make product, it will make sense. Otherwise, melt processing and melt blending is not possible as such, because starch will degrade till then. If anybody else has some questions, we are welcome. We have next sessions. It will be I'll just leave you before leaving. I just want to show you one small video of what a simple pet, what you can do out of the waste that is generated. I'll just show you one video I had created some years back. And the only intention was to collectors collect the best in the bills is put different are adventures we have done. This has been made bottles, recycled PET bottles. These are the wrappers. Again, they're made from PET bottles. These all products are made from recycled PET bottles. So if you buy them, they're pretty expensive. The lining, polyester lining. Found it in a hill station. They were selling these jackets, recycled plastic bottles. Designer clothes. So the first time in Soccer World Cup 2010 that teams used jerseys of PET bottles collected from landfills and like. But also at that same time, first turbo speed Olympic suit was manufactured by using 30 recycled bottles. Now it has become a norm. Our Indian cricket team also wears within years. Balance shoes which are 95% recycled. This is what value for materials. EcoPlease is a big company in the US. 50% recycled material. This is in Scotland. The school bridge is made of recycled plastic bottles. It's called plastic lumber. Like this, construction industry in Canada are using. This is again Canada. They feel that these rain tides, they can withstand harsh temperature, tornadoes. EcoPost is a company in Namibia. Plastic fencing posts. Most expensive cars, trucks, like Volvo used Sabines, Velox, that's recycled. Ford Focus electric car. It was first time they used 22 plastic car seats. Hyundai car years back. Its shell was made of recycled. PET cards from PET bottles is very common concept nowadays. Sony, the giant electronic giant, it uses 70,000 tons of recycling every year. Optiplex screen, it's a Dell model, so they use most of the recycled plastic. Fujitsu, it used recycled CDs for new laptops. B2P was a beautiful concept, bottle to pen. For the pilots, a beautiful concept. They used bottles, offices to manufacture. Green cutlery, recycled plastic cutlery. Recycled PS stick pen. The intention here is to show that please be responsible, don't throw away plastics. Before you throw them, please bear it in mind that you have to dispose them properly. Otherwise, they'll be ending up in dump yards. Okay, somebody is asking that what is the process for converting PET bottles into cloth? It's a very big melt spinning process, we call it, and it's a very big challenge. I'll see if I can get a video and I can share it in the group. When we talk about pollutants from plastic manufacturing industries, mostly we don't have major pollutants going because there is in most of the cases there is no chemical change. It's only conversion, raw material molten and converted into products. But there are certain industries like PVC industries wherein PVC pipes are manufactured, or resin, which is resin is actually PVC cloth. So there is a lot of PVC dust that goes into the environment and into the water. That is one source of pollutant. Uh, there are no major pollutants as far as the product conversion is concerned. Is it economical to sort different types of plastics and recycle it? It's a very, very important question and very difficult to answer because it had it not been viable, we would not have got plastic recycling industries, although they are an unorganized sector. So I would say yes, it is economical, but there are, as the technology advances, we are having different technologies for sorting out of plastics. But the only difficulty is that this lighter one, these plastic films, they are very difficult to sort out. That's why uh, it is pretty difficult to get it sorted out right now. But if you, for example, belong to, for example, in our Lucknow Kanpur region, or I have seen it in Kerala, I have seen it in Tamil Nadu, that these waste collectors, they segregate the products very easily, and they can give you separated this waste also. So it's very, very easy to set up a recycling plant. And in fact, government should appreciate, government has been focusing on appreciating people to go for recycling, establish recycling plants in established. Is it eco-friendly if plastics are used for energy production? Very, very valid question. Um, when we talk about energy production, we don't talk about burning them openly. For example, it has been seen that if these polyethylenes are burnt in controlled environment uh, above 700 degrees centigrade, they don't produce carbon dioxide. Oh, sorry, produce carbon dioxide. So that this is a limited, this is a good sign. So what we suggest is that, and what plastics are being used in is that they are mingled, co-mingled plastic, which cannot be separated and recycled. That is sent to cement kilns. Cement production industries, 40% of the cost of cement is only because of the fuel they are using in the kilns. So when we use plastics inherently have higher calorific value, and cement kilns are run at a temperature more than 1,000 degrees or so, 700 degrees or so. So this is an ideal place wherein this plastic can be used for energy recovery. We don't say that burn it and recover the energy. It has to be programmed. It has to be in a controlled way. Burning plastic is doing more harm than keeping them in the environment. Now, we must all consider this. Any more questions, please?